Welcome into episode 176. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at by CA Simmons, and at Night Sports Now. A few days removed from a 45-3 win for UCF over the number 15 team in the country. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We kind of eliminated things we missed during the losing streak because no one wanted to relive anything from the previous Saturday during that losing streak. But Oklahoma State game was fun. So we'll talk about that again. Got a couple things to talk about after that, Gus Malzahn, and then UCF Texas Tech this Saturday as UCF looks to clinch bowl eligibility with a week remaining. Imagine if they can do that. We have to get to our 5-star review question first. Actually, Christian, how are you?
I'm in a bad mood. How are you doing?
I'm aware. I had to ask on the podcast, though. So for those of you, we always love to tell everyone when we have technical difficulties. This is our third attempt at starting the podcast. At least and I don't want to say like we did 2 podcasts before this. Like we did I got like halfway through the intro twice and we had internet connection issues. And so here's attempt number 3 and Christian is very upset.
I don't know why I'm so angry about this. And that's why I have to say it, because I could not play this off because someone's going to listen and be like, they just beat Oklahoma State 45-3. Why is Christian in an angry mood? It's because we started the podcast and twice in a row, here's what I hear. Bailey goes, welcome. State Christian.
Well, maybe that's going to sound even worse because when you fake pause just now or you fake cut out of internet, it just the podcast is now going to sound like it has a big silence in it. So that's going to be fun.
That's what I just did, didn't I? Is we restarted 3 times so we wouldn't have the awkward pause, and then I manually added it myself by taking a pause. So that's great. Go me. I'm
just in case no one knows what a pause would sound like. But yeah, we will get to our 5-star review question. We got to get to honestly, you know what this is like. The internet didn't want us to get to this 5-star review question because we've put it off for a couple weeks now. And we said last week we'd get to this question, but just outside forces are now trying to prevent us from getting to it. But we will get to Charles's question. Charles Zollers, I think it's how I say your last name, but love interacting with Charles on Twitter. He's been listening for a long time, and we'll get into his 5-star review question. And he does explain how he's been listening for a long time. So here it is. Hey guys, first off, I'm a huge fan and I've been listening since the Shreveport banter and all the crazy things that happened in the beginning of the podcast. So that's how we do know that you have been listening for a long time. My question is, why is there motivation for a sizable group of people to blame us, the students, when UCF loses? I started going to UCF and being a fan in 2020, and since then we went 6-4 with Heupel, a meh 2021 season, all the missed opportunities of 2022 with game day, Navy at home, etc., and this year watching us blow a 28-point lead and lose 5 straight. Since I've become a fan, UCF football hasn't done much for me to be engaged, besides maybe the Florida Bowl win, and I'm a huge fan, obviously, if I listen to a podcast about it. I would have to imagine many of my peers think the same thing. Thanks again, guys. So that's a great point, Charles. It's a great point.
Because... And we kind of alluded to that a little bit when we first talked about this, where I said that about the bounce house atmosphere of the students who were there for when it was crazy kind of aged out. But I hadn't really thought about it in these terms of, if you became a UCF fan in the last 4 years as a student, there really hasn't been anything. Like you've heard a lot about how good they just were, but haven't gotten to see any of it for yourself.
Like while you were in high school and thinking about where to go to college, UCF had these amazing seasons. You're like, oh, it's a really good football school to go to, and then you get there and everything just goes sideways. So
let's not. I will say they went undefeated at home in 2021, so let's not act like there hasn't been any success in the last few years. But it is true that it's not to the degree it was 2017, 2018, 2019. And I think that the whole student thing of why fans blame the students, because I guess that's the main part of the question here this isn't a new thing. I remember when we started Night Sports Now, I think in its first year, you wrote a column about how alumni need to stop blaming students for attendance issues. It's just, I think students are an easy punching bag because if you are a UCF student, now, unless you're like me and you grew up a UCF fan and your dad went there and all that stuff, most people become a fan of a school either right when they go there or in the years leading up. I think you were a few years before because your brother was here, right? Yeah. So you're new to it and it's exciting, but also at the same time, you're in college, there's other stuff going on. It's the game is not the center of your universe. And when you're an alumni, which, a lot of you will be down the road, is, you're bought in on 10 or 20 or even 30, 40 years of caring about this team. And I think it's just the level, it takes time to really care about a team. I don't know anyone who decided they like a sports team and within a month, they're like, yeah, I would live and die for this team. So I think that just students become an easy punching bag because the alumni who have cared about the program through the ups and downs of 30 years are like, why the hell are you going to a party? when you could be there to watch them go up by 35 instead of being up 28. Like, I think that's kind of where it stems from, you know?
What also makes them an easy punching bag is don't quote unquote pay for tickets. Like, students don't pay for tickets. I mean, obviously they do through the student fees, but like that's what also makes them a easy punching bag is like, oh, they don't pay. They get in for free. Why don't they stay for games? Like, it's like, yeah, but they don't really get in for free. And also, like, what does that really matter? Like, that was the talking point. I think it was after Baylor, probably, where it was like, oh, if we cut like the student seating, like then the ones who actually get in will want to stay, because it's just like, no, it's not how it works, and this is like a thing everywhere. Like, I don't know. So I don't know what, like, as far as the question, like, what is the motivation for the sizable part of the fan base to do that? Like, I don't really know. Like, I think
they're an easy punching bag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all aspects of life, right? Like when you're older, you love to hate the younger generation. Like, I'm 26 and I already don't like 18-year-olds. Like, it's crazy. I like, it's just, as you get older, you just like, well, we had it right. And the younger ones, they're the ones who suck. And I'll see stuff on Twitter of fans being like, yeah, when I was in college, I stayed the whole game. And I'm like, no, you did not. Like, you were actually lying. No, like, you did not. No one does.
Even if you did, like, not everyone's as big of a football fan or a sports fan as you. A lot of people, like a lot of students especially, go to these games as like social things, and like, all right, like, they don't really care what's happening on the field, and that's fine. Like, not everyone loves football.
I know I told this story. That's not true, Bailey. Everyone loves it. I know I told this story last time we talked about this. I have to be in the 1% of 1% of people who care about UCF sports, right? Like, is that fair to say, or am I overselling myself by saying?
Probably, yeah, no, I would
probably so. Right. Yeah, like, I don't know how many people would like die for their sports team. Like, I feel like it's not healthy, but it's where I'm at. And I know I said this last time. My first ever UCF football game as a student, I left early. It was FIU in 2015, and it was like a 3-point game, I think, when I left. And I talked about the time that I was with a group of people I had just met. It was like my new college roommates, and I was very excited to be there. But they were new to UCF football, whatever. It was like, I think, late third quarter or early fourth, something around there. And they were like, let's go get dinner. Nitros is going to close, whatever. And I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. And I'm leaving now. It's like, that's kind of what college is like. It's like, it's easy to, in a vacuum when you're sitting in your club seats or wherever, be like, oh, why aren't they staying the whole game? But it's like, it's college stuff. Life is happening. And it's not always as simple as, well, I'm a big UCF fan, so I will be there no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's all that. Hopefully, I think we covered that.
We covered that, right? I think.
Yeah, we covered that.
I really do think, because
shout out to Charles, though.
Because our podcast audience definitely skews younger, but not like super heavily. Like, we've got a pretty good, this is one of the great things about the system we use, is I can see everyone's ages. Not your individual age. It's not like Bob is 12 or whatever. Well, not 12. I don't think it's like 12-year-olds listen to the podcast. I guess maybe I would have listened to a UCF podcast when I was 12 if UCF podcasts existed.
Yeah, I guess so. That's a weird thought, though. The idea of someone being like 12 listening to us would be strange.
I will say, I even get that because we're not that old. I'm 26. Are you 25?
25.
Yeah, and I'll even get, because like I said, we have like an age chart, so I can see like what percent of the audience, and it will be like there's like a 18 to 22 one, and that's like a pretty sizable chunk. And I'm just like, the idea of like actual college kids listening to us is like crazy to me for some reason. But like, welcome, guys. That's great. You're the next generation of UCF fans. Shane, you're killing the program by not staying for games. But yeah, I mean, so it's like we do have a pretty good mix of ages that listen to the podcast, and I hope that everyone just can be a little less like blamey when whatever's going on with the crowd. It's like, and I think especially because most of the stuff you guys complain about is stuff that is a thing for every fan base. It's like UCF is not the fan base where the students leave early. That's a thing pretty much everywhere in college football. Yeah, no, it's always fun. It's always funny when people are like, this only happens at UCF. It's like, well, no, you just don't know anything about any other college programs. So like you're saying that with no reason. Like, it's just nothing to back it up. So which that's one thing you and I always have to take into account too, because we're very big college football fans. Like, we love college football. And I think most people are fans of their team. Like, I don't know what percentage of UCF fans are also watching every hour of college football they can on Saturday, and seeing how everyone else has the same problems. Yeah. So shout out, Charles. Glad we could finally get to your question. I believe you sent it in like 2 weeks ago. So glad we can get to it. Now we will talk about some things we missed from Oklahoma State, which, man, it's just, I started rewatching some of it like last night, and I'll probably just continue throughout the week. Just whenever there's nothing on, I'll just throw it back on. And it's still kind of hard to believe that day happened. Like, just the way it unfolded with all the rain, like, it is almost like I've had reminders of the game today throughout the day, because it's been pouring at my apartment for like most of the afternoon. That's funny. It's been raining here too. Yeah, and I'm wearing the I ended up, after the game, before we did the podcast, my girlfriend and I went to Target to get all dry clothes and a completely new outfit, just because we were soaked and we had to drive back to Tampa that night.
And I got these house slippers that I've been wearing like ever since. So
I should say, if you listen to the post game pod, like I was having a hard time not laughing right when we started. And part of it was you guys showed up and you were in like I didn't realize the clothes changing was happening. You showed up in slippers. You had like an elf Christmas shirt like slung over your shoulder. Like it was quite the look.
I wanted to my jersey wasn't that like wet anymore, so I wanted to still wear like something UCF related for the podcast, but then change into a more comfortable shirt on the way home. So yeah, I bought like a 2XL elf shirt, and yeah, that's what I drove home.
It was also like the second, like I go, bye everybody, and you're like, I need to change my shirt. Like it was like the second the podcast ended, elf shirt was coming on.
Comfortable shirt, but no, yeah. So this was just, I think I can't really do it like on the spot, but up there with the best UCF games I've ever been to. Most fun UCF games I've ever been to.
See, this is where it's always the divide, right? Because like technically a more like fun game in quotes would be like the War on I-4 in 2017. But like as far as games I personally like, I just want to see UCF win by 50 every game. So for me, this one is way up there.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like the War on I-4 in 2017, the last 3 games of 2017 would be up there for me. And then after that, probably this one and then game day in 2018. Like I would think like those are probably the top 5 that I've ever been to. So really just cemented itself like right off the bat. And a couple things we wanted to get to. We talked a lot about the defense on Saturday, but we'll talk linebackers and DBs, but specifically want to shout out Damari Henderson. I know we talked about some of the young guys stepping up on Saturday and like talking about Damari. Nakai was out there a lot, making some plays. Braden Marshall, John Walker, all those guys. But Damari Henderson, like we just need to spotlight just how good of a game he had. I mean, he had 2 picks, he had a fumble recovery, and rightfully so named the Big 12 and the National Defensive Players of the Week.
Which here's a stat for you, which take with like a grain of salt because I need to double check. But from what I could tell off a quick search, I believe that Damari Henderson became just the 4th ever UCF player to be named the Walter Camp National Player of the Week. I checked the list really quickly and it looked like Dylan Gabriel got it twice, Mackenzie Milton got it twice, and Terrence Plummer got it once back in the day. So when you put it in those terms, which we talked about him after the game, we were like, wow, great game. But it's one of those things where the farther away we've gotten, I've looked back on it and I rewatched the game on Sunday as I do. And by the way, like the actual call was fantastic. I love RG3. Fantastic podcast.
Great.
But you're watching it and I'm like, oh, this is like actually probably one of the most dominant defensive performances in UCF history. Like when you actually just take, I mean, 3 turnovers, it's crazy, man. And he was such a force for so much of the game. And I think it's cool because A, he's a true sophomore. He's still at the very beginning of his career here. And B, we've talked so much about recruiting and how important it is and the advantages that come with it. The Henderson twins, the school that UCF got them over was Miami. Miami really wanted those guys. And it's like, yeah. And Braden Marshall is another guy who's playing really well. And it was Auburn who wanted him. And it's just so funny to me that it's like, yeah, when you start pulling away local recruits from the big time programs, it's crazy how they end up being really good.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought?
Yeah. So, I mean, a huge game from him. And then looking at some of the other DBs, like, I guess in the moment, I probably thought about it, but like looking at their stats, like Corey Thornton had 3 pass breakups. DeCorian Patterson, who's been making his way onto the field a lot more lately, he had 2. And then at linebacker, Jason Johnson had one of Damari's interceptions. I think it was the one that he broke up the pass and tipped it up for Damari. It was weird. Were all 3 interceptions tipped?
Yeah.
Or
there was no just straight up.
Yeah,
there was no just straight up thrown to a DB. All of them were tipped. But I got to say, like the Jason Johnson one was like a completion that he gets his hand in on and then intentionally pops up into the air. Like it was a really, really impressive play. Yeah,
it was super athletic, and it's just kind of a throw over the middle of the field that like could have been over his head, and most of the times probably would be over a linebacker's head, but he read it perfectly and was able to get his hand up and knock that away. And I don't know, it's just I feel like we haven't been seeing defensive plays like that this year. Like it's just everything clicked for the first time all year in game 10. But
as we've talked about with interceptions before, there's a fluky aspect to that. I think that's definitely fair to say. And I think that's part of how you take a game that UCF probably, with the way they were playing, could have won by 21 or 24 and instead won by 42. Was that what they won by?
Yeah.
Like it takes moments like that where, I mean, it was some bad luck on Oklahoma State's part, because the funniest part to me was these balls get tipped. And it wasn't just like, the Dylan Gabriel pick against Louisville where, the defense did nothing. Like it was Jason Johnson getting in there and plays being made, but it was also like the ball went up and UCF's DBs were just so quick to it while it's in the air. It was like it was just waiting for them. And it for that to happen 3 times in one game is crazy.
And that's the thing. So like part of it's fluky, part of it's like the more you can get your hands on a pass, like you create more of those opportunities, you're going to come down with some of them. And So for them to be able to do that in that game against that opponent was just, I mean, it's how they got an early lead and stole momentum early and then just never looked back from it because it just kind of kept happening.
I'm kind of starting to get giddy about like, not giddy, but like interested in the 2023 UCF defense because this, like, listen, one great performance does not change. The defense has been terrible this year. And I want everyone to mentally get in the headspace of the fact that it might be terrible against Texas Tech. Like Oklahoma State is still the exception, not the norm from what we know right now. But looking at the young guys who are presumably going to be back next year, you've got Lee Hunter, John Walker, Malachi Lawrence, Matthew Alexander, Nakai Martinez, Braden Marshall, Damari Henderson. I mean, those are how many guys did I just list? Like 7 or 8 guys who are all like borderline star level players or have the potential to be next year. And suddenly you're like, hey, this defense might be insane next year. Like that feels on the table. Yeah, you still need to go get linebackers in the portal, but
and you hope that even some of the ones that aren't playing much, like kind of can develop and as sophomores kind of get out there. And I'm looking at the box score now, and like a guy like Andrew Harris, he was out on the field, but he had 2 tackles.
Yeah, he got in there late. He got in there like
Saturday,
last or second to last drive, and that was the first time I'd seen him out of special teams. I think
he's a guy you would love to be more developed next year, and maybe hopefully take one of those linebacker spots. I don't know, we'll see about that, but I mean, there's young talent all over the defense, which is exciting. Like it's nice that. Like, I know there's been some hideous moments this year, but some of these guys getting to play now and getting to make plays like this and build some confidence and build some just overall experience. I think it's going to be something that hopefully pays off. So that's 100%. been a lot of fun. Then last thing I really wanted to get to was just a quick, like, that was Gus Malzahn's 100th career win. Shoot, I just should have done the math on what win was that at UCF? How many at UCF? 23?
His 23rd UCF win.
Hey, win the next 2 and you have 25. That's just a nice round number.
That's as many as UCF won in a row once.
Oh, God. When you put it that way, like, it takes them this long and it goes of this roundabout way to get to 25 in 3 years.
They took a 5-game break in the middle to just not win, but that's fine. It happens.
Yeah. So, yeah, with you have anything else you want to get to from Oklahoma State?
No, I think we covered it. That's awesome. I mean, we'll talk about that game on and off in the coming years, I'm sure.
Yeah. And with staying on the topic of Gus Malzahn, there's all this talk now. I mean, some jobs are starting. It's that time of the year where teams or programs start to fire their coaches and get a head start on their coaching searches because seasons, by this point, you know what your season is. I know some of them were oddly timed, like Texas A&M winning 51-10 or something like that, and then firing Jimbo Fisher the next day.
Boise State also got a blowout one and then fired their coach.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird, but some of this stuff starting to happen, and you're starting to see Gus Malzahn's name floated out there, which does that surprise you or no?
Well, first off, if you're listening to this right now and you're like, whoa, where did I miss that Gus Malzahn's name is out there for jobs? You really didn't. Like, none of this has made it out of message board chatter. It's finally made its way onto Twitter, which made me feel like we could talk about it. I know Brandon Elwig posted I know an Arkansas person he retweeted has been talking about it. From what I understand, this originated on a Mississippi State board before they fired their coach about how it was some comment about, how Gus Malzahn would be a candidate for Mississippi State, but the expectation is he's going to go to Arkansas when that job opens. And that was kind of where things spiraled from there to then. All the Arkansas message boards for the last few days have been like, wow, we're firing our coach and we're getting Gus Malzahn. Crazy. And now they still haven't fired the coach. And from what I understand, it seems like they're probably not going to, because his buyout is structured very strangely. His buyout is actually based on whether he has a career-winning record as a head coach or not. And if he beats FIU, which is who Arkansas plays next, which they would presumably win, then he will continue to have a career-winning record, which means that his buyout won't drop. So that weirdest buyout language I've ever seen, but whatever. Yeah. All that to be said, there's clearly rumblings, and I'm not going to say there's nothing to it because it felt very concerted on Arkansas media's part to sort of start putting this stuff out there. I don't know who you want to say is applying that pressure, whether it's boosters or whoever, but the notion of Gus Malzahn going back to be the coach there, I have a hard time knowing what to make of it in a few different ways. I don't know if it's believable from the sense of, is that a hire Arkansas would make? I don't know if it's believable from the sense that Gus would take that job. Yeah.
I don't know. And I think it was one of the, I was trying to pull up the tweet, but I couldn't find it. It was some Arkansas insider that was kind of saying that, Gus has no interest in the job anyway, blah, blah, blah. But if all of this is going on, he's not going to even behind closed doors express interest, I wouldn't think, in while the coach is still there. The coach hasn't been fired. So what does he get out of being there's nothing to that until there's something to that. But I don't know. It's always been weird because I've kind of felt like, yeah, maybe he would like leave eventually, but I started to really think that it was just like whenever he leaves UCF would be like when he retires. Like it's just he's getting up there in age, and like I just thought the whole experience with Auburn, he was like kind of just done with that SEC style of having to coach and be under the watchful eye of all your boosters. But I don't know. Maybe he'd go back. I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, we said from the start with his, because he's been very effusive during his time at UCF of how I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here and this is my retirement job and all that. And we've said on this pod a few times that it's really easy to say that when you don't have offers. And we were always going to have to wait
and
for
when
there
you've
to
just
be
gotten
offers.
here.
Yeah. We're always going to have to wait for there to be offers to really see if he means that. And like, gun to my head right now, do I believe that if Arkansas, I don't know, fired their coach today and offered Gus Malzahn, would he take the job? I kind of lean yes, because at the end of the day, we're moving into a new reality where yes, UCF is Power 5 or Power 4, but the SEC is still king and is always going to have more money. I think there's the added factor that Gus Malzahn and his family are from Arkansas. He grew up an Arkansas fan. I think that for all of his talk about UCF being his dream retirement job and all of that stuff is that at the end of the day, coaches have egos. And I think that if he got the opportunity to prove that he could get it done in the SEC, because that reputation was definitely tarnished when he left Auburn, he might jump on that, especially it being a program that he's coached at previously, a program he grew up watching in a state he grew up in. I don't know. I see the recipe there.
Yeah. And if you think about like, he can say this all he wants about like, this is for dream retirement job. Like it's been set up, like it's set up nicely for him. And like, I believe he meant that when he got here and everything. It's like nothing like I'm like, oh, he lied, but it's hard to really like, if just out of, I don't know, it's hard to make this comparison because neither of us are football coaches, but like if he's a fan of Arkansas, he grew up a fan of Arkansas and has ties to that area, like how would you not want that to be a part of your coaching career? Like, how would you not want to coach the team that you grew up watching or you grew up liking? Like,
yeah,
that just seems like a easy, like maybe he wouldn't leave for just any job, but like that job does kind of seem like it would be one that he would be interested in. But
now some added context is that Arkansas tried very hard to get Gus Malzahn in 2017 when he was at Auburn. And that was what resulted in him getting that mega extension from Auburn that resulted in what was until Sunday the highest buyout ever paid to a coach in college football history. So he's turned down Arkansas before. At the time, he turned it down from a blue blood program that offered him more money than you realized had been printed in order to stay. So I think it's a slightly different situation. The other thing that I kind of want to remind fans of sometimes is because, like I said, I'm amazed how much everything this has been on social media, given that Arkansas currently has a coach and has not fired a coach. But, like I would add, when people say stuff like, oh, well, like the path to the playoff is much easier at UCF and blah, 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 stuff like that, is I would ask you in your life when you've changed jobs, what's been the reason you've changed jobs? It's money. That's like, and I don't know why we decide when they're football coaches, that's not the reason anymore. It's like, that's the number one reason anyone ever changes jobs in life is, well, this job offered me more money. And I think everything else is secondary. I do think one thing that Gus and his family would have to strongly consider is that he has spoken several times about how one great advantage of UCF is that UCF is in Orlando and he gets to be anonymous. He can go walk around Winter Park or wherever, and there aren't people taking photos of him at his table or looking over at him or stopping him to say something about a game. Not the case in these small SEC towns. That's not going to be the case in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And that is a lifestyle decision where when you're nearing the end of your career, is that something you want to jump back into? So I'm not saying that if Arkansas offered him tomorrow, it's a done deal. I'm just saying that I don't know. If they actually did offer him, I feel like I would lean towards him taking that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and it's all of this right now is just rumors, speculation, and like things that could potentially happen down the line. It's just that time of the year. Like there could be other jobs that open up. They're like, oh, Gus Malzahn's name is mentioned as a candidate. But
and let me say, this all started with Mississippi State. Remember, that's where the rumor started was, oh, Mississippi State would want Gus. There's been nothing on that since Mississippi State did fire their coach this weekend. And I'm not saying there won't be, but literally there has been nothing. And that was one where I'm like, if I'm Malzahn, I don't know why the hell I'd leave UCF to go to Mississippi State, especially in the new SEC where you have what's Mississippi State's ceiling in an SEC that includes Texas and Oklahoma and LSU and Alabama and Auburn and Florida and Georgia and Tennessee and Texas A&M. Like you're never what's your ceiling? Like 10 plus in the conference? Lower?
It's something you and I were texting about. What might have been yesterday or something like that. Was that like with the new playoff, you can make the playoff in the SEC as like the third or fourth best SEC team probably. But when is Mississippi State going to be the third or fourth best team?
When would they ever?
Unless you're a coach with that big of an ego that you're like, I can get them there. But
and I think a lot of coaches have big egos, to be fair. I don't think a coach ever thinks they're going to fail. I think they go in and say, I think he's like, I'm Gus Malzahn. I can go make anywhere great. But so let me just say where I think we're landing on this in the short term is that I don't believe Arkansas is going to fire their coach. I do believe that he is going to get fired at some point next season because I think it's a buyout situation, not a we believe in him situation. So while we're probably safe for this year, I do think this is something worth keeping an eye on because this might be talk next season for sure.
Yeah. And I will say, if he does leave at some point or gets hired away, whatever, this is an attractive job. Like
it is. Well, but this is okay. So let's bring up what I said to you when we were talking about this, because I think once you realize there's a chance Gus leaves, it really clarifies how you feel about Gus. And I realize you and I landed up on different sides of this, I think, but I realized I don't want him to leave, and I don't want him to leave for two reasons. The first one that I've said multiple times on this podcast, and for some reason, some of you really just can't fit your brains around. I'm still don't get why it's such an issue for you, is that the roster will fall apart. It's not the recruiting class will fall apart. It's the roster will fall apart. Do you like John Walker? Do you like Damari Henderson? Do you like Braden Marshall? They will all leave because that's what happens in college football now. Actually, I didn't even realize this rule. And I noticed it this weekend when all the coaches were getting fired. But when your coach is fired, a 30-day transfer portal window opens up for your team, which is why you've seen like Texas A&M guys go in the portal and things like that. So if Gus left, you are starting from square one, which sucks, but and you lose this amazing recruiting class coming in, which at least if he left next year, you get that class and hope to maintain some of those guys. But my bigger thing is, and this is what I said to you at the time, isn't even, if Gus leaves, they have to start over, because UCF has so many inherent advantages, especially in this new conference, that they will have to start over at some point and they will be fine. It'll just be a reset. The issue that I said to you, and this was what I really realized, was I stepped back and I thought, I have no faith in Terry Mohajir to make the right hire if Gus Malzahn leaves. Like, zero faith.
That's where I paused, because I was like, yeah, if Gus gets hired away, like, okay, like I'm not gonna shed a tear. Like, I know the whole roster thing is a concern, and you just hope that some of the guys have made enough connections with fellow recruits or players on the team, whatever, that they want to stick around. But the idea of Terry Mohajir hiring the next coach, I just don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd trust him to make the right hire, and that
which is
what kind of gave me pause.
Unfair, because the hires he's had to make at UCF so far, I've been good with all of them. I've been good with Rich Wallace. Satia Messer seems like it's working out really well. Women's basketball, it's only 2 games, but they're off to a good start. They're recruiting like crazy. We liked keeping Jenny Marr for volleyball. Like, he hasn't made bad hires here. It's just his track record of football hires in particular is kind of a mixed bag. And it seems like he gets very obsessed with names, like, and I just worry that there's some reality where, because I think that if UCF opened up either this year or next year, it's going to be a very, very attractive job. It was an incredibly attractive job last time, and that was when they were still Group of 5 and there was no realignment on the horizon. Now it's all of those advantages, but you're in the Power 5. So there will be really good candidates, and then I could see Terry Mohajir being like, we got to get Jimbo Fisher. He's a big name. Recruits love him. Let's go get Jimbo Fisher. Like, or just something really, or Butch Jones or whoever, just some has been named that over. Like, if Gus Malzahn left tomorrow and I'm Terry Mohajir, you know who I'm calling first?
Who are you calling first?
GJ Kinney. That's who I'm calling first. But I don't think that that's a move that Mohajir would ever actually make. So,
yeah, no, that's a good point. And that's why, like, we've talked about him as an AD compared to Danny White, and Danny White was just what the hiring coaches was. And again, like, we talked about it on maybe if it was like we did like a podcast in the offseason, like what questions we would ask with the truth serum or something like that.
Yep.
And I talked about how Danny White did want to hire Greg Schiano before he hired Scott Frost. So just maybe that was just a luck thing with him, where like that didn't happen, so he was able to get Frost. But Danny White was always kind of, I guess maybe not always, but most of the time was forward thinking with his hires, and I worry about whether or not Mohajir would be. And
well, the same things happen with him. If Mohajir had his way, Joe Girardi would be UCF's baseball coach right now, but instead it's Rich Wallace. I mean, maybe that's just the thing. I
forgot that was a giant talking point in our giant discussion that I'm glad didn't become a reality.
But it was that built-in security blanket that I had when Danny White was the AD that we just haven't had since he left, was that whenever Danny White was the AD, I always kind of had this security blanket of whoever leaves, I trust him to make the right hire. And I just don't have that now. There are so many good candidates if Gus did leave this year or next year. I'm thinking more next year than this year, and I just don't buy that they'd pick the right one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would go well, but we'll see. We'll keep track on it, or keep track of it. I don't know what's going to happen this year. I wouldn't really think it's going to happen, but who knows?
Arkansas has to open for him to be Arkansas's
right.
coach, guys. That's the part that everyone seems to be missing.
But stuff does speed up, and I don't know. It takes the right booster coming in and saying, "I want to pay this money to get rid of him." What I don't know. All that stuff could happen, but we'll leave it there. We'll, I guess, talk about it again if it becomes a bigger thing. But
I seriously, guys, I don't expect anything to happen here. I think this is a next year discussion. I really do, because I don't buy Arkansas with the schedule changing the way it is, them suddenly getting bad next year. But for this year, we can probably relax. But it's interesting.
Yeah, probably not. All right, let's move ahead to the second to last game of the regular season. I can't really believe that we're already here.
Yeah,
and how we've gotten here has just been insane. But UCF's 5-5. They can clinch bowl eligibility if they go on the road to Texas Tech and beat them. This game's at 5:00 on FS2, by the way.
The fact that they are 5 and like you're just saying it, I'm like, yeah, they're 5-5, but all 5 losses came at once. I just, that's so weird to me. But yeah, FS2, real television channel. Didn't know that. Very exciting.
I didn't even think I had it. I guess I missed it when you said on YouTube TV it exists.
YouTube TV. I scared someone about this earlier in the season, but yes, YouTube TV gets it. So if you have YouTube TV, trust me, you have it. I think haven't double checked, but I'm pretty sure it's in there.
So. Well, it might be. I just searched it, and I've searched FS2 and Fox Sports 2, and it didn't come up.
Did you consider Googling?
No. Because it's weird because I have YouTube TV. I have a YouTube TV account, but then I also, at my apartment complex, we have Spectrum. And I don't get it on Spectrum. It's like one of the locked, like featured, you have to upgrade channels. And I'm like, I'm not upgrading for FS2.
YouTube TV does get FS2. I just confirmed via Google. So there you go.
And insane. Like both teams beat top 20 teams last week, and they end up on FS2 at 5 p.m., which is like, was it you and I that were talking about this, or it might have been, no, I think it was me and someone else. We're saying that 5:00 p.m. too is like just that stupid, like in between when like, we don't quite want to put you at 3:30, but you're also not good enough for 7.
I've literally never heard of a game starting at 5:00. That's so weird to me. I don't know if FS2 is like when you're on ESPN Plus and they just kind of let you play whenever you feel like it, but 5 p.m. is weird.
It's 4:00 local, right? I mean, so I guess maybe that sounds more like, I've heard 4:00 games before, but still, it's weird. But UCF's going to have like the same question it had going into last week. Like, can they shut down this really electric running back? They did it against Oklahoma State, but I don't know. It's, again, you said it earlier, it's like more of the outlier of the season. Like, can they do that 2 weeks in a row? I would be stunned, but also just be like, yeah, I guess where was this all year long? But Taj Brooks is really good. And Texas Tech's quarterback, who, like, I think he's like their third quarterback of the year, maybe, or second at least.
I think he might be their third. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. Baron Morton, he's been pretty decent for them. Like, they kind of have hovered around like just 500 and been hit or miss on some weeks, but like they've gotten better as the year has gone on. I think like it was early on where things looked really, really bad, which was weird because coming into the year, I thought they were going to be like in contention for the Big 12 title, or at least going to the title game, and things just didn't go well right off the bat. And they've kind of rebounded a bit, but still a solid team and a tough place to play. So I mean, it's going to be a difficult one for UCF to go on the road and do, but you play a game like you did, like everything started to seem like it clicked for the offense, like right at the right time last week. Like that was the best John Rhys Plumlee I think has ever looked in his entire life at anything. He was just dropping dimes. Like it was insane. I could not, every time he had to make a big throw, it was there. There was a 3rd and 15. He was able to run again. Like everything kind of came together for him. The receivers were doing well. I mean, obviously RJ Harvey's a monster. So everything was clicking. And if that can carry over, this might be a shootout. Maybe the defense can carry over. I doubt it, but it's going to be an interesting game. Like I'm much more intrigued by this game than I was at this time last week. You know what we were seeing? What? Vertical passing. Yeah, that's crazy. I thought about that during the game. It's funny. I thought about that during the game, and I meant to say it on the post-game podcast, and the thought left me, but it legitimately was. It was deep shots down the field, as Jonathan Gannon would say. Pew, pew, I was literally going to say the shot. Explosives. Weird clip. Let's be clear. UCF is gonna come back down to earth. They're not gonna go out there and annihilate Texas Tech 56-21 or something. Like it's not coming. But and it's so funny for all the talk of UCF's defense finally wasn't terrible and they stopped Ollie Gordon. I feel like the talk to me more is the offense, because I've kind of just accepted the defense is not going to be able to replicate that performance. I think that
They have figured some things out, but there's also no way around the fact that a part of how they went up on Oklahoma State, early, was saying, yeah, we're just going to stop the run and force you to throw. And a monsoon came and made that a very effective strategy. And I don't think there are monsoons in Lubbock this time of year, so that's probably not going to happen. So you probably can't do that. But just as much talk about how the defense played so well. It's the offense it's felt like these last few weeks as JRP's gotten more healthy, they've been kind of ticking up and getting more effective. And it just felt like Oklahoma State didn't feel like an outlier for the offense. It felt like an everything coming together game. And if the offense can play like that the rest of the season, they will put up points. I think that we can't overstate how much John Rice getting more healthy with his knee has helped things, because how many drives against Oklahoma State was there something like the 3rd and 18 that he turns into a first down, or just even a basic play where it's like a 2nd and 8 and there's nothing there, but there's a hole, he runs and picks up the first down. Adding that element, and more importantly, forcing the defense to have to account for that element, is changing the offense. And unlike 2022, he's improved to the point that he can take advantage of that through the air. Kobe Hudson's been great. Javon Baker's been great. Xavier Townsend is back. All of that, you also add in the fact that RJ Harvey's on the greatest tear that any UCF running back has been on in like a decade, or at least since Greg McCray in 2018. And you're suddenly like, hey, maybe no one left on the schedule can stop this offense. Maybe Texas Tech and Houston are both just going to kind of have to watch them cook. And maybe it doesn't matter if the defense still has a tough day.
You know what I'm really curious about? What the offensive line looks like. Do they stick with the one? I would think so. Like, why not? That was probably better, like the best iteration of it we've seen all year. And if they change up now, even if someone got healthy, like I know that's the reason probably they had to settle on that offensive line last week. But even if someone got healthy, don't change anything, please.
So Gus said in his presser this week, because, you know, why keep something that's working, that Caden Kittler would be in the mix at center this week potentially. So that's great. And listen, Lokahi had a couple bad moments, but I think we're all in agreement that was the best the offensive line has looked all season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and Oklahoma State's no pushover.
I guess that's the one change. Like I'm fine bringing Kittler back in and moving Lokahi back over.
But Medley's been good, and Medley's probably who you're booting. So the offensive line they put out against Oklahoma State was Lokahi at center, Marcellus Marshall at right guard, Adrian Medley at left guard, Tylen Grable at left tackle, Amari Kite at right tackle. New group. Yeah. Adrian Medley's a guy who got hurt 2 years ago now and was supposed to be a starter, then we kind of just forgot about, and now he's very slowly worked his way back up the depth chart. I'm good with that O-line. Part of me is is the staff really going to leave Lokahi at center if they have another healthy center option? But it worked. I don't know. It worked really well. I kind of don't want to see them go away from that.
I would prefer that they don't. And if they do, I don't really want to see Medley benched or anything, but I could see them doing that and saying Kittler come back and Lokahi obviously is a guard and he's a good guard. Right. So
which maybe we're the crazy ones for saying intentionally play a guard at center when you have a center, but I don't know.
Yeah. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I really don't know what to expect from this game. Everything's kind of just out the window after last week.
But it's just nice to know there's a chance. I mean, how many games this season have we just been dreading? I mean, just waiting for Saturday. God, I just wish it would be over. And that's the biggest thing that's changed for me. And we felt that way last week. I was not looking forward to the Oklahoma State game.
No, me neither.
I want to see some uniforms, think they look good, and go home. And instead we saw a great game.
The day before the game, they posted a picture of the field, and I was like, "Wow, tomorrow's gonna be great," except for the window of time between 3:32 and 7:32. I forget. Then it was a great 4 hours, and I had to go back and say that I was an idiot.
Yeah,
but
so just being able to be excited for a game, and that doesn't mean they'll win, but I don't. Okay, we'll knock on wood, but I don't really see them going there and just getting beat up on like we've seen in some other games this season. Lubbock's a tough place to play, and that is a factor. And I'm not saying they're going to win. I think it's going to be tough to win, but I don't think it's going to not be competitive.
Yeah, and I didn't even really ask you if we're doing score predictions. I think we kind of have been, and I've just been making them up on the spot. I don't know at all. I've talked myself into the idea of it being a possibility that they win both of these last two games, and I would be a dream scenario. They'd be 7-5 going into a bowl game. And it doesn't feel unrealistic at this point. It does, which is weird because it's only been. I mean, it's been a 1 week change because of the way they played last week. But I'm more likely thinking they're going to lose this week and beat Houston, finish 6-6. But it does not feel like me talking myself into 7-5 is overly optimistic or overly I'm just trying to cope or anything.
It's funny how a couple weeks ago I think I literally said the words on this podcast: anyone who thinks this team is finishing 3-1 is insane. And now they are one more win away from doing that. The turnaround has been impressive. And
when was
it's also
When was it when I said I don't even want them to go to a bowl? I was like,
I was
don't
after
want
West
to watch them play
Virginia.
another
It
game.
was after West Virginia.
I was like, I don't want to watch them play another game, which at the time I think was a fair statement. But
yeah, and we're like in such better moods. It really reminded me that it's like if they were 5-5, but had just gotten there in a normal way, I think everyone's fine right now, because it's just at the end of the day, it's like we're very simple, dumb people as sports fans. And like when team loses, we're sad. When team wins, we're happy. And if UCF had just been alternating wins and losses all season, we would be mostly okay. But it was just that we had to go 6 weeks without watching them win. It just crushed us. And just seeing them win, even though I kind of feel like they're probably going to lose on Saturday just because it's on the road and it's a pretty solid team. But it's just, it doesn't feel like if they lose, I don't think the fan base is going to be in shambles, you know?
I don't think so, but then again, it's UCF fans.
If they get like crushed again and it's like the same problems emerge, like they lose like 45-21, then yeah, people be mad and I'll be okay with that. But it's like either way, no matter what happens in this game, they've given themselves a chance to win at home against a pretty bad Houston team and go to a bowl. And that was the goal. So they're there, you know?
And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to beat the dead horse again. If they beat Baylor, they'd already be 6-4, and winning out would make them 8-4.
Listener, that phrase is not to beat a dead horse. I've never heard anyone say it like, I'm gonna beat the dead horse.
Well, yeah, because I don't know, everyone always says not to beat the dead horse, and then they do it anyway. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna beat the dead horse. Like cruel and like vicious saying. What? Like, why is that thing in the English language?
One of those things that everyone just like says and you don't think about. Like, oh, that's like a pretty horrible thing.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why did I say that?
Because presumably, this is so bad. Presumably, you beat the horse to death, right? Like that's where the phrase comes from. It's like,
where did I think there was somebody? It was like an old teacher or something like that I had said that, like said that phrase, like not to beat the horse to death, and it was like like what? I forget where I heard that.
Let me give you another one. Have you ever heard someone say, "Let's nip this in the bud"?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Not like I know what the phrase means, but like what's nipping something in the bud?
I don't know. Isn't it like a flower thing?
Yeah, it's a plant. It's like snipping a plant. And my whole life I heard people say that, and I think that's probably embarrassing. Maybe I'm making myself look bad, but I feel like I was pretty old when I realized that was like, oh, that's like a plant thing. Okay, I just thought it was a phrase you said.
The clip I showed you where the guy thought Tupperware was Tubberware. Like, it's just the little things like that all the time are like. But yeah, and people always thought, I've heard people think that it was nip it in the butt.
Yeah, that's like a common thing.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Is it?
But yeah,
it's not snip it in the bud. It's nip it in the bud. Is that right?
I think so. Wow, now you've got me.
Welcome to Language with the Pegasus Podcast.
Linguistics.
Where we just talk about basic phrases. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Let's do score predictions, I guess.
38-31. 38-31 UCF. I kind of actually think UCF's going to lose, but I would feel like a jerk predicting that after they just won 45-3 against the number 15 team in the country.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like the vibes are good right now, so I want to pick them to win, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I'll pick UCF. I'll pick them to win. Let's just I'm going to do that thing where I look up into the sky again and try to come up with a score. Let's go 42-34 UCF. Why not?
Okay, I like it. You kind of said that in a weird order, but it's fine. Also, while we've been talking, the UCLA 247 site is reporting that Chip Kelly is expected to be fired following the USC game. So you heard it here first. Gus Malzahn, UCLA's next coach, fired the rumor mill.
I completely forgot that Chip Kelly was UCLA's head coach.
He's been their coach for a very long time. I think he's been there longer than he was at Oregon now.
That's so weird to think about.
He got hired in like 2018. It was the same cycle as Frost, because him and Frost were like up for the same jobs. Yeah.
Don't think about him. I don't think about UCLA football ever. So
why would you?
Don't know. Except for when Dylan Gabriel almost went there.
Did go there. Was enrolled in classes.
That's the thing that happened. All right, football news. Let's jump into it. There's actually a lot to get through this week. Some of it we've already talked about, so I'll skip over it and try to do this the right way and not read something that we've already talked about. So, UCF was named the Cheez-It National Team of the Week. Didn't know that was a thing that happens every week, but UCF was that team this week. So shout out to Cheez-Its. UCF and Houston were flexed into the 6-day window for kickoff times yet again.
ESPN Plus, here we come.
Feels like that would be likely, which would make it a 6:30 usually is what UCF
does.
If
UCF is playing a home game on ESPN Plus, it is a 6:30 kick.
Yeah. UCF Space uniform is rightfully landed at number 1 on Uniswag's uniform countdown this week.
Which means they will be eligible for uniform of the year at the end of the season, so get ready to vote.
The thing that you said, like when we were talking about on the postgame podcast, when I was like modeling the jersey, like if they redesign that like Pegasus thing on the sleeve. I love it.
I just want to see that kept, like whenever they refresh the uniforms next time. Just
even the pant stripe thing too. Like I love the. You don't want to do that.
I don't know. I've gone back and forth. I think I've said on the pod at one point that I would like to see them do that, but I also I don't know. I like UCF having the clean pants design because I think that lets them match combos better. Like if you're gonna go with the sword, like what color is it, and then does that affect how different jerseys look with different pants? I don't know. It feels like complicating, but
I'm curious we think like what a black and gold like gradient sword would look like.
See, I also white. It worked for these because it was the idea of it going through a horizon, like going from blue skies into space. I usually don't like gradient stuff. Like I think gradient stuff doesn't look great on uniforms. It worked for this for the theme, but like I don't know if I'd want to see gradients on just like regular football uniforms.
Yeah. Okay. Glad we could get that in. John Rice Plumlee was named to the Davey O'Brien Awards Great 8 for Week 11, so the 8 best quarterback performances of the week. I think he got that once or twice last year.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
The space game was one of them, and he's just there's no quarterback better than space game John Rice Plumlee, apparently.
Someone needs to tell Rich Wallace to just wear the space uniforms every game for baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The ironic. I wonder what his stats were like in the Citronaut Saturdays.
That sounds like a thing I'm gonna have to look up after this podcast.
Because I mean, he might have been really good in that too. Who knows?
I'm willing to bet he was hit by a pitch while wearing a Citronaut uniform. So I feel like he was, because I feel like a lot of highlights I remember of him hitting home runs and stuff in the space uniforms. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. Where like I feel like I've seen him hit home runs in the space uniform. So
John Rice loves space, man. Like
if he does.
Come on.
Gus Malzahn was named the Dodd Trophy Coach of the Week. It was just all sorts of accolades for UCF this week. They were like, I mean, I think they had the best win of anyone in college football, probably, right? I'm trying to think. Like I didn't get to watch the rest of.
I mean, not like if you're going by resume stuff. Like Michigan beat a top 10 Penn State. Yeah. Oklahoma State wasn't 45-3. They did not. Oklahoma State was not the highest ranked team to lose, but they were definitely. It was a beatdown. Like you don't see that often. Especially you don't see it with an unranked opponent just annihilating a top 15 team.
Yeah. And then just for some fun, because we can talk about bowl projections again, because UCF is a win away from getting to a bowl game. Just some of the bowl projections we've seen this week. The Action Network has UCF and USF in the Gasparilla Bowl. USF also 5-5, 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So I think we talked about this on the pod. Did we talk about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, or no? Was it just you and I talking about it?
I think we were just talking about it.
It was just you and I talking about it. I don't know, but I think that would be a lot of fun, and it being in Tampa would be great for me personally. Same thing with the Athletic having UCF and Georgia Tech in the Gasparilla Bowl. I think I'm just firmly. This was like how it was last year. Firmly in the camp that I just want them in the Gasparilla Bowl if they get to a bowl, because I want to just easily be able to go to it.
I'm getting a little annoyed with the UCF fans on Twitter who are like, we don't want to play USF again. And it's like all the same talking points. Like, it's like, what do we get out of that? And it's like, I'm really getting sick of that narrative in college football in general. Like, it's like, what do we get out of it? They're our rival and I like beating them. And I'm going to enjoy watching UCF beat them. Like, can we just shut up with all the stupid BS about what it means for like, oh, well, what do we get out of it? What's the point of doing it? And blah, blah, blah. We're going to it's like, no, it's a freaking bowl game. That doesn't mean anything to anyone outside of Central Florida anyway. That we'll go win. It'll be USF's big crowning moment. For the first time in 5 years, they're back in a bowl. We did it just to get curb stomped by UCF. That would be fantastic. And how could you not want that as a UCF fan? Like, give me a break, guys. Just stop being dumb. Like, I just stop caring about stupid things. Why would we want to play them? They're our rival. Like, just, God, I don't get it.
UCF fans will never stop caring about dumb things. We've talked about it every week. It's like every week there is one new thing or one, maybe sometimes it's a recycled topic, but there's always one topic where it's like UCF needs to do this or this needs to change. And it's like, they're just going to keep caring about these dumb things. So.
But this specific thing is bigger than just a UCF thing, because it's like, that's the college football mentality now. It's like the same thing, when someone tweets at like a Mississippi State fan is like, your team sucks. Mississippi State fans are like, well, we made $85 million in television revenue last year, so we're crying to the bank. Why do you care that your team made $80 when it's not good at football? It's that mentality of like, just enjoy the freaking games, guys. It's like, it's a sport. Yeah. We like beating teams we don't like. Whatever.
Yes. Anyway, so the Gasparilla Bowl projections with either USF or Georgia Tech, I'm in for. Yep. This is where the bowl projections get less fun. ESPN having it as UCF Coastal Carolina in the Independence Bowl.
Shreveport, baby.
Or UCF and Troy in the Birmingham Bowl.
You agreed 2 years ago that if they played in the Independence Bowl, you would go. So if it's that one, you have to go to it.
Did I say like forever, or did I say that year?
That's unimportant. You agree.
Yes. No, I'm not going to.
We have to go if they go to Shreveport. We have to go.
No,
yes, we do. Yes, we do.
When is that? We're gonna do this again. I think we did this last year. I feel like we looked it up. We were like,
this.
when is it and what time? I'm gonna look it up right now on the podcast. Talk about something.
I feel like our newer listeners have no idea what we're talking about right now.
I don't know why it became a thing anyway. What does it have, a water park? What was that, like the big thing? Like it has
Splash Kingdom.
Splash Kingdom. It's December 16th at 8:15 p.m.
Easy. Well before Christmas.
I'm going to a wedding that day, actually.
Are you really? You go to so many damn weddings.
Yeah, but this one's not like I just am going as a +1.
Is this like an important? Oh, well, it's not important. Then just go to Shreveport. Who cares? You're a +1. They're not going to miss you. We have to go. All right, listeners, let us know. Should we go to Shreveport? If UCF
I'm not listening to our
listeners.
Bowl. Our listeners listen to us.
We'll put up a poll, and if you say yes, we have to go.
No,
I'm going.
I listen. Are you really? Would you go to Shreveport? All jokes aside.
If you agreed to go with me, I 100% would. If I didn't have anyone to go with, it would probably drop to like 80%, but I'd still probably convince myself to do it. Yeah. Especially since it's that far before Christmas.
Wow.
It's Shreveport, man.
CBS. First time anyone's ever said that sentence. It's Shreveport, man. UCF Arkansas State in the Cure Bowl. You up for that again?
What the hell?
I don't even know if that can happen.
I don't even think it can. So there's a couple layers to this. One, if you're a newer fan, you won't realize that the Cure Bowl versus Arkansas State just triggers horrifying memories for most UCF fans, because it was the end of the 2016 season where UCF was shockingly pretty okay. They went from 0-12 to 6-6. UCF then acted like I was going to curse. I'll just curse. They acted like dumbasses the whole week because they were just like, yeah, we're playing Arkansas State and who cares? And like UCF was like skipping the bowl events and stuff. And then Arkansas State goes out there and just annihilates them. That's the game where Mackenzie Milton got booed off the field by UCF fans. And then Arkansas State, because I covered that game, they all come into postgame and they're like, yeah, UCF just gave us so much fuel by acting like we suck and not playing games with us at the bowl game events. And it was just this giant mess. So like, yeah, let's do that again. Let's once again.
Terry Mohajir Bowl.
Oh, didn't even think about that angle. Yeah, that's true. Another angle, the Cure Bowl is now at the Bounce House. So UCF will be playing a bowl game in their stadium. Lots of drama and angles for this Cure Bowl versus Arkansas State.
The last one we have is 247s, which is UCF and Illinois in the Birmingham Bowl.
Ugh,
it just sounds gross, doesn't it?
So boring. An opponent gross. I don't care about in a bowl I'd never go to.
Yeah.
I have been to Birmingham, Alabama.
Me too.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah, no, you have. You've done a podcast from. Oh no,
I haven't. I was in Mobile.
Why did I go to Birmingham? Same thing. Wait, have you not been to Birmingham?
I haven't been to Birmingham. I've been to Mobile.
Wait, have I been to Birmingham or have I been to Mobile?
I don't know.
Which is
you go to Alabama?
I was about to say which is the one with the building and realized that that's not.
Oh my god,
helpful. I'm almost certain I've been to Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna do game of the week real quick, and you can confirm if you've been to Birmingham.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Game of the week is UCF men's soccer versus an undetermined opponent. They'll be number 12 UCF men's soccer in the NCAA tournament. They're hosting a second round matchup at UCF on Sunday at 6 p.m. and they'll play either Vermont or Rider in the second round. And I know they lost their last regular season game and were a first round exit in the conference tournament, but to go from number 1 to number 12, was that surprising to you at all or no?
Honestly, no, because they dropped 2. I mean, it's pretty cutthroat at the top.
Big drop.
It didn't affect them in a huge way. I mean, they still got the bye, but I mean, they're gonna have to fight their way back up. Update: I haven't been to Birmingham. I've been to Mobile. I also
wait, why have you been to Mobile?
I also mixed them up. It was like years ago. I went for like a camping trip thing when I was a kid.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say that I feel like of like our friends, I feel like I would be the only one that has ever been to Mobile, Alabama. But
so this is a podcast where everyone on the podcast has been to Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like Mobile. I'm going back in January. So
and we're gonna get to cross off Birmingham this December when UCF takes on the mighty Fighting Illini.
No, that one I can unequivocally say I'm not going to.
I don't know if
I'm not going to Shreveport either.
I don't know.
You would watch it. You would watch it twice.
Yeah, I would. I don't know. I haven't. Oh, that's a lie. I was gonna say I haven't watched last year's Military Bowl live twice, but that's a complete lie. I actually have. So never mind.
All right, you have tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week. This week we are going to throw it to one of the Space Nights hosts. Another in the podcast. Is Space Nights a podcast or is it a live show? I'm not sure.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, well, either way, you should check them out. They're great, and I like them all a lot. But they are not immune from Tweet of the Week when they've earned it. And Tweet of the Week this week is going to Austin Heff for tweeting something that I have problems with for a few different reasons. He tweeted after the game on Saturday, which I get, we were all emotional. He tweeted, Kevin Smith had his success against much weaker competition. RJ Harvey is the best running back in school history. So I have a couple thoughts. on this. First off, it's just factually wrong. Like, some of Kevin Smith's best performances came against Power 5 teams. He torched Texas in 2007. That was a week after he ran for 200 plus yards on NC State. Like, Kevin Smith put up numbers against, it did not matter the team he was playing. He put up numbers against all of them. And that's problem number one. I think I said I had 2 problems, but I just thought of another one. So I actually have 3. Problem number 2 is that I know that, like, and I don't really get it from Austin because he's been a fan for a long time, but I get that fans like forget stuff from the past, but like, no one's touching Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is, the drop from him to every other UCF running back is dramatic. He was the most dominant player UCF has ever had, probably the most dominant player UCF will ever have. He was unstoppable. Number 3, and this is the serious one. We are not doing this, guys. We are not going to do the thing where now that UCF is in the Power 5, we discount every previous UCF star as, well, they played against bad teams. Let's not be that thing, because I know it's coming. I know as soon as UCF has a good quarterback again, which I'm not saying John Rice isn't, but I'm saying like a star level quarterback, people are going to be comparing him to Milton and going, well, Milton played against a bunch of bad teams. Was he really that good? Like, we're not going down that road, guys. Like, don't be those fans. Come on. It's not.
You know, what's funny is when you gave Austin tweet of the week, there was another tweet that came to mind that he tweeted like today, I think it was, that I almost replied to before we got on the podcast. I was like, I'll leave it alone.
That's rare for you to even consider replying.
Well, no, it's something, it's a personal gripe, not with him, but with, so somebody asked like about the overrated chant. They're like, it drives me crazy. Like, why would you chant about, you know, a team you're beating being overrated? Because doesn't that just discount you? Which, like, fair point.
That's a very fair point.
But Austin said, it's silly and fun, just like chanting, you can't do that, or jumping around and making noises to Kerncraft 400. Not everything has to be serious in a science. That's a fine tweet. The only issue I have with that is the you can't do that chant. I absolutely hate it. I've always hated it.
So it's actually funny you brought that up, because in the press box during the game, for whatever reason, like me and like 4 other people had like an in-depth discussion about the merits of chanting overrated during the game. And I fall in the camp of, I think it's kind of dumb, because it is like we're talking about beating a top 15 team. You don't want to be like, well, you know, we beat them because they suck. But at the same time, like, that's what fans do. And we know for a fact that it aggravated. Ollie Gordon was like fighting with opposing fans, which I did not realize, like yelling at them so like, it worked. Good job. I'm not upset about it, but it's just one of those kind of funny things every fan base does, where it's like, you're going to chant overrated at them, then go on Twitter and be like, what a great win for me.
Yeah, we beat a really good team. But yeah, no, it's all fun. That was just I don't know. The you can't do that chant. Even when I was a student and people were chanting it, I was like, well, they can do it. They just did it. So
you can't do that.
Yeah, I hate it.
There are a lot of dumb chants.
We used to chant it at high school basketball games, and I just don't think it was something that need to carry over to college. But
well, you know what you didn't hear?
What?
On Saturday? Frankie Valli. Did not hear
the song
Frankie Valli at the game.
Yeah. It was good. We
someone was fired. That's all I know.
Went down to the bathroom at the end of the third quarter, thinking like, I might miss Frankie Valli. And I came back, and our friend Sarah was like, no, they didn't play it while you were gone. And I was like, now they're waiting for us to be back to play it. They never played it. The vibes were good. Vibes were good and not destroyed in the
Frankie Valli is not played. UCF wins 45-3. Coincidence? Who knows? Stay tuned in future home games to find out.
They're gonna play it in like the first quarter against Houston.
It's not the first quarter. There's gonna be like, it's like gonna be like late in the fourth quarter. The game's tied like 28-28. UCF's coming off a loss to Texas Tech, and they like need this to win, and like they have like a TV timeout. It's all tense, and then that song just comes on. Like they'll like save it for that moment.
Okay, so we're just going to prolong the podcast because I have another thing to say. There's like a similar debate. I don't even know if it's really a debate going on, but the Bucks keep playing "Take Me Home" Country Roads, or I guess the song's just Country Roads. Played in Germany last year. They've been playing Country Roads at home games. Been doing it in the fourth quarter. People sing along to it, whatever. They played it the second quarter the other day, and also like. I remember the first quarter, honestly. But even in recent weeks, like every time they play it, like they're losing. Like it's just like there's no tie to like anything, and everyone's just like we're just in the press box, like why? Like, why? It's like why do teams and programs try to force things like this?
Not to make this an NFL podcast, but you're trying to dissect the mentality of a team that fires a cannon when their team enters the red zone. Like I like the Bucks just do weird stuff. I don't know. They probably it all makes sense to them. I'm sure.
I maybe it does. I don't know.
The red zone cannon thing is crazy to me. Like I found that out fairly recently, and that just blows my mind.
Gets you hyped. You got a score's coming.
Gets you scared. If I'm just like it's just a random play in the middle of the game, and it's like cannon shot.
Get to the 20-yard line, cannon shot. Yeah.
Because the thing is, every single other team in all of sports that uses cannons has burned into your brain that a cannon is for points, and they are the only one who's like a cannon is for red zone. Like it's just very odd.
They do it for points too.
I know, but they also do it for when they're in the red zone.
Yeah. I've never really considered like the merits of that or just even thought about it like until you were like appalled that it happened. I was like, yeah, it's just that's what they do.
So
I don't know. All right. Before we jump into some random other topic that doesn't really apply to our podcast, we'll get out of here. We'll be back on Saturday. I guess it will be a pretty late night podcast. I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock or so. When we're recording that one after the 5 o'clock kickoff against Texas Tech. But we will be back on Saturday with episode 177. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCA Simmons, and at Night Sports Now. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you Saturday.
Bye, everybody.